Folding cell phones. The next big thing or stupid gimmick? Yes, both. Let me explain. Some 10 or 12 years ago, I worked at a fast food joint, and I had a buddy there who had gone to the States to visit family or whatever, and they came back with an iPhone, the very first iPhone. Now, if you're Canadian, this is not news to you, but the original iPhone was never released in Canada. I remember it being about some dispute over the brand iPhone. It was owned by a company in Canada, so because of that, Apple couldn't market using that name here. That issue wouldn't be sorted out until the following year when the iPhone 3G came out, and that one came out in Canada, and that's the first iPhone I ever owned. Now, I still remember when this guy brought his iPhone to work because there was this sense of fascination. Now remember, phones used to look like this up until the iPhone. So to say the iPhone was revolutionary is not really an exaggeration. And yes, the original iPhone was seriously limited in what it could do, even compared to much cheaper phones that came out around the same period. But there was something amazing about that design. People would ask this guy to see it, they wanted to touch the glass, they wanted to just experience it with their own eyes and I guess fingers. That sense of wonder, that can I look at this, let me see this, I want to see how this works, that it's almost magic in a way, that has long since evaporated from the cell phone industry. Pretty much every single phone out there right now looks like this. It's boring. It's a big screen with a stupid notch at the top. Thanks a lot, Apple. But other than that, they're all the same. They're all the same. There's nothing to be excited about anymore. By and large, we've grown very accustomed to what a phone is. And that's why the folding cell phones are so interesting to me. They bring back that sense of wonder. Remember when you first used an iPhone or even the iPod Touch, which to Canadians was the only way you could experience something like the iPhone before the iPhone came out in Canada. The idea that you're touching glass and it's actually working, that was pretty revolutionary for the time. I didn't even understand how that could even work. I was very used to how resistive touchscreens work, the ones where you actually apply pressure to the screen like with a Palm Pilot or a Nintendo DS, but this was a capacitive touchscreen. There's nothing to press on because it's glass, it won't bend to your touch. So how does that even work? And I see a lot of that coming back with these folding phones. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that this is the only thing that matters, but that's what gets me excited about this concept. When looking at, I'm pretty sure that the first time I use a folding smartphone, it's gonna bring back those feelings from more than 10 years ago when I first used an iPhone, because I'm gonna have to come to terms with the idea that this is a display that bends. And yeah, every display bends if you're strong enough and you don't care about using it afterwards, but you know what I mean. Now, right now, there are two folding cell phones to look out for. There is the Galaxy Fold, made by Samsung, and there's the Mate X by the guys over at Huawei, which isn't as well established a brand here in North America, but who, in my opinion, came up with the design that I believe if folding cell phones really do become the norm, they're going to look more like what Huawei brought to the table here. The Fold was announced a little over a week ago, and I gotta commend Samsung for at least trying. Samsung consistently tries to bring new things to the market, whereas Apple mostly plays it safe and only really brings changes to their phones once these technologies have become well established. Samsung is pushing the envelope a lot more, and I appreciate that. Even though some of these, let's call it, experiments don't really pan out that great in the end, it's still great to see that some brands still try to think outside the box. Think differently, one might put it. The Fold is an interesting concept, but as you can see from this picture, and this is something that wasn't immediately obvious from the Samsung presentation, it really looks like they went out of their way to hide this in the promotional photos. But the thing is, the Fold doesn't fold perfectly. It doesn't actually close up. There's this little, you know, there's this little bump at on the corner here where the Fold is, and I don't really like the look of that, and I don't think many people like that either. And at the steep price they're charging for this, which, by the way, I do understand this is effectively two cell phones glued together and it's brand new technology. I understand it's expensive, but for something that looks like this and costs this much, I mean, obviously there are some people who are devoted Samsung users, so maybe this will appeal to them, but I'll pass. The Mate X by Huawei, on the other hand, is, in my opinion, a more elegant solution to this whole folding cell phone thing. It actually closes up nice and flat, and just like the Samsung Fold, once open, it sort of becomes a tablet. Now, I love my iPad. I use my iPad a lot for watching movies or reading comic books. This is the main thing I use my iPad for. And at times, it's just not feasible to bring my iPad with me when I go out. But to have that in one device that is a phone and then, when needed, becomes a tablet for media consumption, for reading comics or whatever, this is something that I find very interesting, which is more than I can say about the price. The Mate X is even more expensive than the Fold. And that brings me to the central point of this video. These folding cell phones, though interesting and thought-provoking and maybe hopefully will lead the industry towards this direction, these will not be the folding cell phones that you and I will eventually end up using, even if this folding phone design paradigm actually catches on. The folding phone that is actually going to win the hearts and minds of people, it's 2 or 3 years down the road, when this concept is fully fledged out, when the prices go down considerably, which they will. At one point, the iPhone was laughably expensive, and though it's not exactly the budget option, tons of people have iPhones. You see iPhones everywhere. You didn't think that would ever happen back in 2007 when it was introduced. So one day, yes, I think we'll see a lot of folding cell phones. Hell, I hope we do see them, because cell phones are boring. They're just boring, and we need something new. Cell phones have been, like I said in the beginning, pretty much this for just way too long, and I'm excited for something new, especially something that combines the functionality of a phone with a tablet, something that normally I can't bring in my pocket everywhere I go. And that's what I meant in the beginning. They are the future and a stupid gimmick all at once, because right now that's what we have, an interesting direction for the future that is hindered by a design challenge and a very steep price point. Speaking of price points, can you imagine if Apple ever does make a folding iPhone, if the other brands are charging this much? What would Apple charge for their folding cell phones, if and when that ever happens? But what do you think? As always, let me know in the comments down below. Also, let me know where you are watching these videos from. I'm always fascinated to find out. Follow me on social media, both Twitter and Instagram. I'm very active on both. I post a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff on both of them, a lot of my portable gaming collection. Maybe you'll be into that. And that's all the time I have for today. I'm Izzy, and I'm done.